Hello, my name is Rocco Strangio, and I'm the host of the Law, AI, and Money podcast. I bring on attorneys, engineers, and entrepreneurs to unravel the world of AI and to discuss how it'll affect the legal profession. Today, I'm joined with Navan Ward, a principal at the prominent law firm of Beasley Allen. Navan has spent over 20 years litigating on behalf of mass tort claimants. At Beasley Allen, Navan leads their pharmaceutical drug and device litigation group, and he is widely considered to be one of the top mass tort attorneys in the country. On top of his numerous appointments to various mass tort leadership positions, Navan also leads multiple organizations and has served as president of the American Association for Justice, the largest trial lawyer association in the world. As a leader in both mass tort litigation and civil justice, it's an honor to have Navan on the podcast. We hope you enjoy our conversation. Well, Navan, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I want to go into the projects you're working on, but for those of you that don't know, in the mass tort space, Navan is one of the most respected and trusted attorneys. He's been doing mass torts for a long time now, and it's a privilege to have him on. I want to first start, Navan, with how you got into this space, because everybody has a unique story of how they get into mass torts. It's sort of a unique area of the law. But even before that, what made you want to become a lawyer? How did that?
Yeah, well, I'm the first in my family to be a lawyer. I believe the first attorney I ever met was in law school. Some of my law school professors. So I really didn't know what this area, what this field would entail. I just remember, and I probably said this to others throughout the years. There's a character Blair Underwood played in a TV show where he was a lawyer. They seemed to help people. There was something about Blair Underwood's his character that I was just drawn to. Representation definitely matters. It even though I didn't know anyone in the legal field, seeing him doing things that I could see myself doing when I grow up, so to speak, really did impact me. And so that from a very early age just had me in the mindset of going to law school, even though no one else that I knew went to law school. And of course, after you get to law school, they don't necessarily talk much about mass torts there. They don't necessarily, unfortunately, talk a lot about the plaintiff side of the bar in law school. And so after a brief stint with the insurance defense firm, I found myself at my law firm, Beasley Allen, which has been doing this type of work for over 45 years. And I was fortunate and blessed because they were doing this type of work. It allowed me to be introduced to it and start working on it at a very, very early time frame in my career.
Yeah, I feel like, personal injury, it's underplayed in law school. I remember not too much. We didn't go too much into civil suits. But then being at Beasley Allen, which for some of my viewers that might not know, one of the most respected national mass tort firms in the country, you sort of were just pushed into that, I guess, right? You never had the idea that you'd become a part of their mass tort department, did you?
I was just happy to have the opportunity to work with them coming into that firm. This firm, we do everything from single event product liability to class action cases to toxic tort or environmental law cases. Back then, we did nursing home cases. We still do nursing home cases. We had a section completely devoted to that. And of course, the mass tort section. And I've had the opportunity to at least be in 2 or 3 of those sections throughout the time that I've been here working on different types of cases. But throughout that time, I started with mass torts, and throughout that time, I've had cases where I've handled mass tort from the very inception of me coming. And so, you really don't have necessarily, it's hard to get in this space without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a certain type of organizations like Shades of Mass and other things like that that introduces these type of litigations to people who are not aware of it, who have not had an opportunity to get into it. But for me, it was really just to flip the coin, whatever section that was needed. And our section with mass torts definitely needed help. We had just come off of working on FinFin, which was one of a really early but really big project, big mass tort that hurt a lot of people dealing with weight loss. And we were coming into the phase where another really big litigation with regards to Vioxx, Celebrex, Bextra, pain medications that cause heart attacks and strokes were coming on the scene. And of course, I had the privilege and the honor of working with a lot of my law partners here at Beasley Allen and a lot of lawyers around the country, and then being able to litigate that case and help the victims for those particular medications, as well as many others to come after that.
Yeah. It's interesting because mass torts, for how underplayed it is, how little it's talked about, it's probably one of the areas of the law that affect the most people and has the biggest impact. I know those cases back in the day, Vioxx and breast implant and FenFen, today we have Camp Lejeune, which everybody probably knows about, the 3M earplugs, Ozempic, right? These are litigations that are on everybody's radar, but nobody kind of knows the process and how they're administered and who are the attorneys like Navan behind the doors fighting on behalf of all these claimants. So it's really interesting. And it's not for the weak. I feel like, dealing with this many injured claimants, it's tough. You develop a connection with them. You learn, because it's the volume of it too. It's not just one client. You're dealing with thousands of clients. So I wanted to ask you, does that ever become difficult, and how do you navigate that weight when it comes to being a litigator in mass torts?
Well, I mean that's a question that I think any human who has a pulse would have to answer and have to feel for the many, many different, very, very fortunate and tragic stories that we see on a daily basis. But I think the plaintiff lawyer and certainly the lawyers at my law firm at Beasley Allen, and again, I would venture to guess that the great majority, if not all, plaintiff lawyers, this is the reason why we do what we do. Again, I mentioned I spent a brief stint at an insurance defense firm where we spent a lot of our time trying to figure out how to get the insurance company out of whatever wrongdoing that they may have done and essentially screw the victims over. I had a hard time being able to go to sleep at night. Good lawyers, good friends, but what we did, it just didn't sit right with me. And so when the opportunity came here at Beasley Allen, I of course jumped on it because I had a good understanding of what they do, just the general reputation that they had at that point in time and continue to have. And being able to really help people in the way we were able to help them. I mean, there's a lot of risk that comes along with being a plaintiff lawyer in general. I mean, a plaintiff lawyer and a mass tort lawyer. And there's many things I've seen both in the mass tort realm as well as the single event realm where people, single individuals are hurt from a product standpoint or a trucking case or what, nursing home case or what have you. One thing that is drilled in to me is that no one, not one of us, are immune from coming home from work after this podcast and being hit by a 18-wheeler that has been driving well over the time limit it should have been driving. No one is immune from operating a vehicle where the airbag doesn't work properly and you get into an accident. None of us are immune from taking medications that we may need, whether it's supplements, whether it's things that are prescribed by doctors who they themselves many times are not aware of things, and having an unfortunate um, side effect or risk or an injury associated with it that should not have been, and that at least should have been known. None of us are immune from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we see that over and over and over again, it's we're fighting for our clients without a doubt. We have connections with them without a doubt, but we also know that we have to fight for what's right, because we never know when your family member, a friend, or you yourself will be hurt by something like this. And so it's you never want anything to happen to any of the clients that we have. And I unfortunately had that really difficult call while I was on the plane headed to a 5-hour flight, and right before we took off, I got a call about a family member who had perished horribly in a car wreck where his car caught on fire. And we ended up taking on that particular case, and it was a single event product liability case, crashworthiness case, where, of course, the car should have caught on fire, and my family member should have been able to escape without any significant injuries. And he was just driving home from work, and it really it really puts things more in perspective than you could know, and certainly allows we as plaintiff lawyers to really know what our plaintiffs are feeling, what our clients are feeling, no matter if it's one or if it's 10,000 that we're representing. Each of them, this case is very real to each one of them, and because of that, we treat each one of them with that same respect and understanding, and we don't take their injuries lightly, because one injury may not be as devastating as another, but it is still, to each and every one of the people we represent, it has a major impact in their household, and that has to be top of mind. It has to be top of mind. Me, my law firm, and plaintiff firms that represent these type of victims.
Yeah, it's heavy work. I know I've talked to many other mass tort attorneys, and they share with me some of their stories on the work they've done one-on-one with some of these claimants, who are claimants amongst thousands, and it's tough, and it's not just about, all of it is about getting the recourse to claimants, of course, but an underrated aspect of mass torts is oftentimes our government fails at regulating these large companies or regulating practices for whatever reason. It's an inefficient at times form of regulation is legislation. But what you guys do above getting the recourse to these claimants individually is you're forcing these large companies to regulate themselves in ways where claimants down the line are being prevented from being injured. So, and a lot of the things that we have today, people attribute jokingly, oh, that's because of a lawyer litigated a case. But for good reason, oftentimes, because without lawyers, plaintiff attorneys going around keeping these large companies in check, it would be a free-for-all, even more than it already is in the United States.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that the plaintiff's bar, we have to somewhat be one of the main reasons why companies choose to make correct decisions, even though it may cost a little bit more money. A lot of times they make wrong decisions, bad decisions to save money, to cut costs, to make more profit, and the threat of being held accountable is what makes them oftentimes make the right decision the next time they make whatever product they make that will, unfortunately for the client that we're representing at this moment, it won't help them, but certainly will help someone down the road. And again, it's being a part of so many litigations, and the firm being a part of so many litigations where there's a street sweeper defect that institutes a recall to keep someone from suffering horrific injuries, or a Murphy bed failure that we've had to litigate to help someone in the future from having uh, uh, to to suffer a horrific injury, all the way to, again, on a larger scale. Since law partners, and not being able to work very early on in maybe litigation, and continuing to work and experience not only a withdrawal in the U.S. of talcum powder in baby powder, but also being able to witness that happening globally around the world. And but for um, plaintiff lawyers, firms like mine, uh, stepping in and holding them accountable with things like this happen, to keep future victims from getting ovarian cancer, or suffering whatever other injuries that these products oftentimes cause.
Yeah. What would you say, and I know there's lots of moments that you can point to, lots of claimants. Um, but what is one moment in your career that you point to as one of your proudest moments?
Well, that's an unfair question, because it is, like you said, it's too many family members that, whether we were able to win or lose, have a successful or unsuccessful outcome, have sincerely come to us, just really thanking us for the amount of work that we put into it, and uncovered that they had no idea about, being being their voice against these big companies, a lot of times attempting to bully them around. Um, and so there's so many of those situations that come to mind. And the proudest moment, if I had to pick one, would be when my law partner Andy Birchfield called uh, all of our, not just attorneys, but our staff colleagues, our secretaries, our case intake staff, our paralegals, all together. And after, at that point in time, 3 4 years of leading the charge in the baby powder and talcum powder litigation, um, giving everyone a reminder of why we do what we do. When with the announcement, again, as I mentioned earlier, of talcum powder being taken out of baby powder, not only on the nation, the U.S., but globally. Um, so people, 33,000 people per year, at least in the U.S., that get ovarian cancer because of the use of talcum powder, and making sure that number does not continue. The horrific news of having cancer from, again, a product that you would not think of would cause anything, because it's baby powder, right?
Hmm.
But being able to save people, being able to keep people from having to go through that. So many cases come to mind, but because, and as we're talking about mass torts, it doesn't just affect one person, it affects many thousands. That, if I had to pick one, would certainly be one of the proudest moments that I can think of, as being a plaintiff lawyer, particularly at my firm, and doing what we do.
Yeah. It's a testament to how important mass torts is. And I don't mean to harp on the same thing, but that's just one slice of what you and your firm has done over the years, and what some other firms have done. Um, whether it's putting in new labels, whether it's taking out Roundup from our shelves, whether it's taking out talcum powder from baby powder. It's things like that that make what you guys do so important. Navan, obviously, you're one of the most experienced attorneys in our space, not just mass torts, but in the legal space as a whole. Where do you think our current legal system does well, and where do you think there's room for improvement? How can we improve the legal system?
Well, even though I question it sometimes, we do have the best legal system in the country, in the world. We have this thing called the Seventh Amendment of the Constitution that allows each and every person in this country to be heard, to have a trial by jury, and have the opportunity to hold whatever wrongdoer uh, in that particular situation, to have jury of their peers be held and hold the wrongdoer accountable. And so, from starting from that premise, I think that's what our current legal system, when judges and when we as legislators and we as attorneys on all sides respect and appreciate that right, um, I think we do well. Where we have problems and where the practice of law could certainly do better is the continued attack on our plaintiffs' rights to be heard and to hold wrongdoer accountable. You mentioned legislation earlier. Uh, every vote matters because there are legislatures who are in the back pockets of these large corporations and the constant attack, whether it's trying to uh, make laws that allow for instance, arbitration. A lot of people, I think, now are starting to understand what arbitration is more. It's in everything. In your Uber app, when you sign on to whatever other apps, or when you go to various different stores and just even get their discount card, your rights are being taken away. You have to, you don't have, at least they would argue, the right to go to court if something happens. You have to go to an arbitrator, which is in no way, shape, or form going to give you the same type of relief as your peers may very well be able to do. And so, whether it's arbitration or whether it's efforts to preempt meaning not allow you to even bring a lawsuit
Mm-hmm.
in the first place. And then there's so many other different ways to, limits on damage recovery for certain victims. All of those, and even now they're getting even more creative on the other side with using the rules, the rules of civil procedure, rules of evidence, and various other different uh, rules in order to make it more difficult for plaintiffs to either get to court or to have a fair shake when they do get to court. And so the slow erosion of our Seventh Amendment right, because of all these different new and creative ways, is something that certainly we have to change and we have to be more aware of in order to change.
Yeah, I think um, it seems like our government falls short oftentimes at putting in these regulations and protecting consumers. Like, one way you can point to is just the nature of our food and how much it differs in comparison to other countries. And I think, and maybe you have similar opinions or maybe differing opinions, with the passing of Citizens United and all the money that's flowed into elections, it's only gotten worse. Or it definitely didn't help the situation. So it'll be interesting, but you guys are doing whatever you can to keep everything in check. And maybe you might have a different opinion. Right now, mass tort seems strong, and um, I don't know if we are necessarily in the age where mass torts um, litigation has flourished as much as it did maybe in the past. What are some of your thoughts on that? Is mass torts slowing down? Is it speeding up? Or is it consistent where it has been in the past?
Well, I think it's really in the eye of the beholder, as if as to the extent if it's either speeding up, slowing down. I do know that, unfortunately, we continue to have products that continue to have problems, and those are facts. Whether it's through recalls, whether it's through studies, whether it is um, through various other ways that we end up seeing and investigating and eventually filing lawsuits against a lot of these companies, pharmaceutical, drug, device, cosmetic companies, or and beyond. It's these problems continue to exist, and we continue to um, um, be just as busy now as we were 10, 15 years ago, if not more. And we certainly take that experience and try to circumvent and try to um, navigate these waters of these new litigations more efficiently. But again, there's so many obstacles on our side that makes it that makes again going through these type of situations, going through these type of litigations, it just makes it more difficult. And so I I hesitate to say that it's getting stronger or weaker because I know that I'm just so involved in the ones that I'm involved with. But there's so many that are out there, and I venture to say that hey, unfortunately, bad companies or companies making bad decisions are continuing to have us in a situation where we have to continue protecting these victims.
Mm-hmm. Navan, I want to quickly, talk about something else. You may not be aware, maybe you are. You were the first Black male ever appointed to a co-lead position in a national mass tort litigation, and the second Black candidate ever appointed to the American Association for Justice president position. Um, you're obviously a trailblazer, and not just in the mass tort space, but the legal space as a whole. What do these accomplishments mean to you, and what does it mean, and what could be done to further effectuate some meaningful change in our industry when it comes to representation?
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I've heard that about the first appointment shortly after I had gotten appointed. Actually, wasn't even shortly after; it was some years afterwards. You don't realize, yeah,
Mhm.
these different things when you're going through it, and it certainly is something to be proud of, but at the same time, it's something. Uh, I think it was 2016 or 17, I think, when I had gotten appointed. Being the second African American president and the largest trial lawyer organization in the world, and the American Association for Justice. All of these things are again something to be proud of, but it also it shows where we are, and that we have a long way to go with regards to uh, being able to have the type of diversity in the legal field that represents so many of the people who are hurt, so many of the victims that are out there, for the legal representation to represent our clients,
Mhm.
um, as well as the judges. And so, it's an honor when you're actually doing the work and going through it. You don't necessarily think about it; you just want to do what's best for your client. You want to do what's best for litigation. You want to do what's best to end up, having a successful outcome with whatever you're doing. Um, but as a byproduct of that, and knowing that so often, um, uh, we even nowadays, people like me are the first, second, third, fourth. You have to do a good job, and hopefully, in the same way that Blair Underwood, um, not knowing what he or his character did on, I think it was L.A. Law, uh, really did touch me and allowed me to know that I could do this law. Hopefully, whatever I do, in whatever capacity I do it is touching uh, uh, many others in the same way, to again effectuate that change, to effectuate having more qualified attorneys to be able to do some of the things that I've done, whether it's in leadership with a large organization who fight for the little guys such as AAJ, whether it is in mass torts, whether it is in various other type of litigations that I've been involved with.
Mhm.
I know I may not have always done it the right way, but and I've made a lot of mistakes. But I certainly hope that what I have done, to the extent that anyone has paid attention or is watching, um, is helpful. And there are so many others that are alongside me, that are pushing this ball forward. Again, it's sad because there's so many others. Um, I should not have been the first Black person, African American, to be a co-lead, because there are so many more qualified people who have practiced for so longer and have come before me that should have held that title. But you know, as long as we're heading in the right direction. And there's a lot of things that um, you know, different judges are doing in order to assist in that process with regards to MDL leadership. Again, I mentioned Shades of Mass, which is an organization that myself, Ben Crump, and many others are a part of, that are helping to push um, leadership in MDLs and just really just awareness of mass torts in general, so we can have more of that diversity.
Yep. It's you know they're it's important, and I don't think, you know, you're very humble when you talk about your accomplishments, Navan, but you really have uh, pushed us forward, not just with your work in the legal space, but your work with these organizations as well, like you mentioned with Shades of Mass. Um, and to the viewers, it's important because there are some litigations that disproportionately affect certain communities, and we need to have those communities litigating um, those cases because they have connections with those communities, whether it's hair relax or any other. So it's really important, and I know it's almost insensitive to call it an accomplishment, you know, because it's a bittersweet milestone, but it's a testament to all your hard work and accomplishments. Um, I wanted to ask you really quickly, what are some of the litigations that you're currently working on? What are some of the backgrounds in those cases, the injuries, and what are some of the issues you see?
Well, you just mentioned one, hair relax, or the hair relax litigation. I'm heavily involved on plaintiff's leadership in the federal court, as well as many of the state courts. And of course, the hair relaxer litigation deals with consumers who used hair relaxer products over the last several decades, and that resulted in either endometrial, uterine, or ovarian cancer. Again, I have the honor and privilege of representing so many of those various victims, those women, many of which look just like my mother, my sister, my wife, my family members and friends. And so I definitely take that particular litigation personally in the same way that you mentioned earlier about having people like me being able to represent those communities and those victims that are predominantly affected by this type of product. In that particular litigation, again, I'm doing work in both the MDL, the federal court, as well as state courts, um, within the last couple of weeks, we've been given trial dates and expect to take the first hair relaxer case to trial. Hopefully, it looks like by the end of 2025, and so. We're gearing down to make sure that we are able to represent those clients in the best way possible and have successful outcomes with those trials. Some of the other litigations that I've been involved with, again, mentioned the baby powder. Almost our whole firm is involved with that litigation, just because of how big it is and how just important that litigation is. I have the single event product liability cases, metal on metal hip cases that are going to trial. There were mass torts, now they're in their own courts. And of course, being a part of our Atlanta office here at Beasley Allen, a lot of the single event non-mass tort serious injury or death cases dealing with product liability, premises liability, medical malpractice, and in Georgia. Are things that we're working on.
Yeah, I saw that Beasley Allen just in your Atlanta office, and just in the context of single event personal injury cases, which would be your motor vehicle accidents, your slip and falls, recovered hundreds of millions of dollars in recoveries for your clients. So congratulations on that. That's incredible. Before we wrap up, Navan, I just want to give you one opportunity. You know, you have the platform to plug anything you want our viewers to know, or anything you just want to talk about in the legal space. You have the floor. Whatever you want.
Well, Thank you. I mean, you've really asked a lot of questions, good questions, detailed and in-depth questions. I'm not really sure if there's much more I can add, but I can say this. I mean, you've talked about how either personal success I've had either on my firm, and just plaintiff bar in general. And, I'd be the first to tell you that we are not able to do that alone. We have to be able to have a good working relationship with many people, attorneys, as well as litigation support, and in many different areas. And, again, Milestone, we worked with you all in the past and currently work with you all. And thank you all for the work that you do, not just in this aspect of podcast, but the actual work that Milestone and other organizations or other companies that really help us in areas that we're just not equipped to be able to ultimately help our clients. And so that's much appreciated. And again, it's one of those things where I do appreciate being again on this side of law, and all the various different attorneys and firms that I work with, and our staff. I mean, our staff, I can't say enough how in all success that we've had that you've mentioned. Feel guilty whenever again. On a fence post, you would have to have help getting there, and that's certainly what I experienced, and part of my story. So I have to look back and to the side and thank them as well.
Well, thank you, Navan. Again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on and share your insights. And I look forward to seeing you in Atlanta, the next Shades of Mass conference, wherever it may be held, and around the circuit. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you as well. And I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah. All right. Take care, Navan.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Law, AI, Money podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation, be sure to like and subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. Thank you.